hello. So that should be good. It seems like it's recording now. Okay, can everyone see the slides? Yeah? Okay.
Yeah, we can see it. Thanks.
Excellent. So let's get to it. So I'll give you guys a little idea of what we're going to talk about. So we're going to go through first a little introduction about what exactly is conflict resolution. Then we're going to talk about some of the theories and some of the types of conflicts, so you can understand them better at the root cause. Then we're going to look at some strategies and a step-by-step guide into how to resolve conflict resolution. And then at the end, a conclusion and some key takeaways. Okay? And this is obviously conflict resolution in the workplace, but know that you can apply these methods in other aspects. Okay? So let's start with an introduction. Okay? So let's define it in itself and try to understand exactly what conflict in business is. And essentially what it is when you have interests, needs, goals, or values between two or more parties that are in opposition. Okay? There's some kind of a disagreement or a dispute. Okay? Hold on. We're going to cut the mic. Somebody has their microphone on. Can you guys just turn the mic off? So let's look at the difference. And this is an important distinction. Okay? The difference between conflict resolution and conflict management. Okay? So what is conflict management first? Okay? When you have conflict management, okay, this in itself talks about the process of handling or dealing with conflicts as they come up, okay? It's the idea of focusing and controlling those conflicts, okay? So that you're able to diminish or decrease their negative impacts. Okay, the objective of conflict management is actually to prevent conflicts from escalating. So you want to stop it from getting worse, okay? And you want to minimize the effects, like any disruptive effects that it could have on teams, on the organization as a whole, or on the individuals, okay? Typically, the approach that we use to managing conflict, it deals with different kinds of techniques that look very similar to negotiation, okay? Now, we're not going to discuss negotiation in detail in this session, but eventually we'll probably do a conference on negotiation, so you guys are welcome to join that one. But just so you guys know, there are techniques like avoidance, which, if you can't tell from the word, basically means you avoid the conflict. So, for example, you're angry with someone and you don't call them, you try to not see them in the office, you walk the other way, that kind of thing. Accommodation, compromise, collaboration, and competition, okay? So avoidance is one end of the spectrum, and competition is the other, where you have this attitude where overall you want to win no matter what, okay? We're not going to go into these into detail because I want us to focus more on conflict resolution. But the main idea of conflict management is that it might not necessarily lead to a total resolution of the underlying issues, okay? What it basically does is just minimize the negative consequences, okay? Now, conflict resolution is basically the process that addresses the root or the fundamental cause of those conflicts, okay? And the goal behind that is you want to find a solution that's durable, that's that lasts, okay? So you want to eliminate, you want to resolve any issues, and you want to lead to a mutual agreement, okay? And where both conflicting parties are happy, okay? The approach that we use for that comes from things like first identifying the core problems, and we're going to look in more detail with this to see a more step-by-step process. But a lot of it comes from fostering or creating good communication in your teams, to looking for common ground and understanding, okay? And finding solutions that are mutually beneficial, okay? And so overall, resolution, what it aims at is complete and sustainable resolution, not just like a Band-Aid where you minimize it, but a total and overall harmonious and positive environment, okay? So let's look at a little bit of the theory. Okay, so basically conflict resolution, it's something that's studied in management, in HR, human resources, and in organizational behavior, which basically studies how people behave in organizations. You have essentially two theories. You have traditional theory, which is here. I don't know if you guys can see my pointer. I hope so. But traditional theory basically looks at suppressing conflict, okay? The idea behind the traditional theory is that people that come into conflict in an organization are causing disruption, okay? It considers that these people are what you would call troublemakers, okay? It's often looked at in a negative light, okay? Modern theory, on the other hand, looks at conflict as something that you can't avoid, okay? It's inevitable, okay? It's a workplace. You have diverse personalities. You have different perspectives. People's goals are not always aligned. And so it's normal that you would have conflict, okay? Now, what it does is it promotes this management of conflict by having constructive conversations, by having open communication, okay? By leveraging conflict as an opportunity to be able to maybe find an innovative solution and to maybe look at things in a different point of view, okay? And a lot of this modern theory says that actually some of the most creative solutions often come out of conflict and healthy debate and dispute, okay? So let's have a look at conflict resolution in business now, okay? We looked at it sort of as what it is generally. What is it in business, okay? So basically, it's the process of addressing disputes and disagreements within a group of an organization, okay? That can be any kind of a business. And the idea is you want to mitigate, okay? You want to control the impact that this has on business operations. You want to control the impact it has on team dynamics and the success overall of the company. Okay. And what it does is it puts strategies and techniques in place to manage and to resolve these conflicts effectively. So the overall goal in a business aspect is you want to find mutually acceptable solutions. You want to promote harmony in the workplace. And obviously it's a business, so we want to increase productivity and you want to foster positive workplaces, okay, and positive working relationships. So why is it important? Okay, it's important for three major reasons. One, as a business, you want to enhance productivity. You want to improve productivity. Okay, you want to make sure that your teams, they can focus on their tasks rather than disputes among each other. Okay, so as you all might know from your office spaces, when there's problems in the workplace and teams, no work is getting done, right? Second, you want to improve communication. So the better and more open dialogue that there is between team members, the better collaboration and idea sharing that goes on. Third, you want to have a positive company culture, which means you want to have a supportive, a harmonious work environment, and you want people to be happier in their jobs, which means that there's better morale, there's more job satisfaction, people want to stay longer with your company, and they want to progress and they want to work better in their teams. Okay? So, what happens if you don't manage it? Okay, if you leave conflicts to fester or to get worse, okay? Basically, you're faced with reduced efficiency because there's too many distractions that affect the workflow, okay? And they hinder or they stop projects from moving, or they stop projects from progressing, or they actually can stop a project from coming to conclusion. You have increased levels of stress. So the more tension there is in a workplace, the more people in your teams feel uncomfortable or uneasy. And overall, it's going to impact people's mental health and their well-being and their productivity at work, right? If you, for example, don't get along with a team member, it's hard for you to get your job done. And third, you have an erosion of trust. So if you have relationships that don't work, for example, between a boss and a subordinate, and there's no trust there, or you don't trust your team members, it affects your collaboration and you're not able to work properly or collaborate. Okay? So now let's have a look at the types of conflicts that you can have. Okay? So generally, there's 5 different types of conflicts, okay? And it's important to note that sometimes they overlap, okay? So you can have something that's informational and values conflict, or interest and relationship, but generally you can categorize conflicts into these 5 categories, okay? So let's look at the first one. The first one's called information conflicts, okay? This is the type of conflict that arises from a misunderstanding in information or data or an interpretation of that information. So for example, 2 people are looking at a spreadsheet and they understand the information differently, okay? So it's a data analysis discrepancy. Or there's a miscommunication in the project brief. Okay, one person understood one thing, another person understood something else. Okay, and these kind of conflicts can lead to decision-making challenges. Okay, but it's essentially a conflict over not understanding information correctly, right? Because we all interpret information differently. The next type of conflict is a values conflict. Okay. And this generally comes when people have different beliefs, different principles, or different ethical standards when it comes to individuals or groups within an organization. So if you have a conflicting philosophy, like in the example, for example, my philosophy is that I work until I get it done, versus somebody that says I work until 5 o'clock and then I'm finished, you're going to have a conflict there, right? Or people who generally believe you should work on the weekends, and others who believe, no, my principles are that my weekends are for my family. That's a values conflict, okay? And this also can lead into problems making decisions because the core values aren't there, right? Or someone, if you take it even a step further, someone who believes in being very honest in business, or someone who's more opaque and wants to hide things in business, that could also lead to a debate and a dispute, okay? The third type is an interest conflict. Okay. And that's when you have a competing interest or goal between two individuals or more, between teams, between departments. So the most common type would be, for example, teams that are departments competing for resources. So for example, you have a budget and you have two departments that both want that budget, right? So they're competing over that. It could also be over resources, like how many people my group could hire versus how many people another group could hire. This is what I mean by resources. It's not just financial. It could be human resources. It could be time. It could be anything. Okay? And this leads to disagreements in strategic priorities, like which department gets more. And next, you have relationship conflicts, okay? So this is more personal, interpersonal dispute, right? Where there's emotions, where there's strained relationships. You have, for example, personality clashes. You have sometimes you meet somebody and you click right away with that personality. Sometimes personalities don't always match so well. Okay. And so this can lead to trust issues, personality clashes, and unresolved tensions. Okay. And the last type is a structural conflict. And this is usually something systematic. Okay. Where the organization has a certain policy in place or a procedure that creates some kind of a constraint. Okay. So let's say there's an organizational hierarchy that causes a certain type of conflict. For example, it's a very high up, like the hierarchy is sort of very horizontal, okay? That can cause conflicts between lower levels and higher levels, okay? Or, for example, people have a dispute if there's not enough defined roles. Sometimes people can have disputes over who does what, right? There could be unclear roles and responsibilities. So people argue over, I should do this. Oh, no, I'm responsible for this. Or no, you do this and instead somebody else is doing it, okay? Or inefficient workflows where you have 3 people working on the same project and nobody knows it, okay? So that's the different type of conflicts. What's important to remember is they can overlap. And what's important is to know them so that you can understand where the fundamental root cause is of these conflicts. Okay? So let's get into the strategies of how you resolve them. Okay? So 3 major things to do. Number 1, collaboration, team building. Okay? You want to make sure that you're building a team where there's trust, there's open dialogue, and when you come up with a solution, it's not just one person or 2 people that come up with the solution, it's collective, meaning the entire team comes up with the solution, okay? You want to do things like team building activities, workshops, projects where people have to work together, okay? All of these kind of things are going to strengthen relationships and they're going to establish common goals among team members. Okay? Next, effective communication. So you want to build clear and empathetic understanding. So people understand that everybody has different perspectives and people try to understand that, okay, my way of thinking is not necessarily the only way of thinking. Let me try to understand something from another point of view, okay? So what you want to do there is you want to encourage active listening, clear messages, communication, non-violent communication, right? Where people are not yelling at each other. And you want to ensure effective expression and reception of ideas. And the third one is negotiation. So you want to actually teach negotiation skills to your team members so that it's not always somebody else that has to resolve the conflict, but that they have the tools to negotiate between themselves And so they can sometimes explore alternatives and seek mutually beneficial outcomes between themselves. Okay? So if you look at a step-by-step guide of how to do this, there's essentially 8 steps. Okay? Now, step 1 is to recognize and acknowledge the conflict. Okay, this is quite important because you can't pretend that it's not happening or say things like, it'll go away, ça va, it's going to fix itself. That never works. Okay, that usually if you avoid it, it gets worse. Okay, it exacerbates the issue. Next, you want to define the nature of the conflict. So you want to try to figure out what type of conflict is it. Okay, is it a relationship conflict? Is it a structural conflict? That makes it easier for you to find a solution. Okay. Step 3 is you want to encourage open communication. So you want to create a space where people feel safe, where it's neutral, where people feel like they can talk to each other and not be judged. Right? Step 4 is to find a collaborative and a way to generate solutions where people could, for example, brainstorm solutions together. So like everyone comes together and says, okay, we have this problem. What can we do? These are the options, blah, blah, blah. Let's decide together what we can do. Okay. And like I said, that's step 5. You select and then you implement the best solution. Okay. So among those brainstormed ideas, you come up with the solution that's best aligned with the business objectives. Okay. Because it may not always be aligned with the business objectives. So you need to make sure that it is. Okay. And that's where you would develop your action plan. Okay. This is what we're going to do in this amount of time, and this is how we're going to do it. Step 6 is you're going to monitor and you're going to evaluate that. So you're going to track and assess, was this the right solution? Did it work? What was good? What was bad? Step 7, you're going to follow up and adapt. So you're going to come back and you're going to make sure, is the solution that we came up with and implemented in step 5, does it work in the long term? Because a solution that worked once may not work overall. It may not continue to work. Okay? And step 8, to make sure that more conflicts don't arise, you're going to want to foster this positive environment where people can talk, they respect each other, they go to training workshops where they have team building, and they can build together effective resolution skills. Okay? So they learn how to resolve it amongst themselves without having a third party coming in. Okay? So we went a little over, but the conclusion and the key takeaways is, number 1, conflict is inevitable. Okay? You can't get away with it. People should learn that it is natural to have conflict, okay? It's normal to come from diverse people, values, communication gaps. What you should do is embrace it, okay? Think about it as a way where it can help you foster creativity and better solutions. Strategies like collaboration, effective communication are vital, okay? It's the most important thing for conflict resolution. The problem in the process to resolving conflict has a systematic step, and you should follow those steps 1 through 8 in order to identify the best resolution. Okay. And you should shift your ideas to more modern conflict views where you foster positive work culture and not have the mindset of like, oh, this person is always causing problems. Think about it as a way, as an opportunity to create better solutions. Okay? The importance of effective conflict resolution, it's crucial for harmony, for productivity, for positive work culture. It helps empower your teams to turn conflicts into opportunities for growth, okay? And what you want to do is you want to welcome questions and discussions between your teams for better understanding, for deeper understanding of the processes and how you can do things better going forward. And you want to emphasize continual learning through dialogue and shared insights. Okay? Sorry, I was a little fast at the end because I noticed we went a little over time. But you'll notice I put in a little bit of vocabulary, okay? We tried to select sort of the vocabulary we thought you guys might not know. So I'll let you guys look at that on your own when we send you all the document. And you have some resources in the back. So here are some learning modules, okay? So the negotiation module is a great way because it also taught negotiation and conflict resolution go hand in hand, okay? Here also, this is from our blog. And then we've included an interesting article from Forbes that talks about what we talked about today is 3 ways to manage conflict in the workplace. Okay, so we're a little over, but I'll take, does anyone have any questions? No one? Okay. Well, thank you for our first session. I hope to see you guys again at another session. Okay. And have a nice holiday, everybody. And I will see you guys in 2024.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good evening to all.
Bye.
And Merry Christmas.
Bye, Lisa.
Bye.
Happy New Year, everyone.
Happy New Year.